On today's episode of Locked On Wild, a false alarm on the rebrand front, but is it something the Wild should take a bigger look at? And the Edmonton Oilers got back in with a win. Can they finish the deal?
You're Locked On Wild, your daily podcast on the Minnesota Wild, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up? Welcome into another episode of Locked On Wild, your daily Minnesota Wild podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you, as always, for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. Today's episode of Locked On Wild is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to get started. On today's episode of Locked On Wild, Alex Micheletti joins us as we talk about the false alarm in the jersey rebrand front. We'll talk about if the Wild should actually have considered it a little more. We'll also talk about just the overall mentality of the Iowa Wild and whether or not the Wild should look to maybe add a coach that has been successful in the college ranks to help run things at the Iowa level. And we'll talk about the Stanley Cup Final because the Edmonton Oilers punched the Florida Panthers in the face in Game 4 to pick one up and get themselves to 3-1 down. My name is Seth Topal, your daily Minnesota Wild insider, joined on this Monday edition of the show by Alex Micheletti, as always. And Alex, recording on Monday after Father's Day weekend, to just take the opportunity to enjoy the full weekend. And it's funny because we still have plenty to talk about here today. In particular, one that I thought was just a perfect encapsulation of how the media experience goes these days. We had the tweet last week, I believe it was on Thursday, that the Minnesota Wild in 2025-2026 were rebranding with their 78 colors, the green and the yellow, and we're going to go with that full time in the 2025-2026 season. Michael Russo quickly doused that with about as big of a bucket of water as you possibly could, saying that the Wild knew nothing about it. It was not, quote, rooted in fact. I think that was a not rooted in reality, was just a hilarious quote from all that. And so it was amazing because the reaction is basically like 50-50. You either love those colors to the point that you are fine with them being the primary, or you want to see this team kind of create their own story and not look to the past. And so I talked about it a little bit last week, but I figured this would be perfect to lead off today's show. What do you think of the whole thing? Where are you at with the color scheme of the team, the 78s, the nows? Is this something that the Wild should consider more seriously, or are we in need of maybe even going in a completely new direction entirely?
I'm okay with the red and green. Seriously, I don't think it's that big of a deal, but it would be nice to see just a different logo. I think the bear or whatever we think it is. I think that's time to switch it up. But I'm okay. You have to have your own identity. This is not the North Stars, so it's cool that they have a throwback every now and then that they play with, but we have to move on at some point. It's not the Dallas Stars, it's not the Minnesota North Stars anymore. So just embrace the Wild and maybe just change up the logos itself. Get a fresh rebrand.
Yeah, from a sports fan's perspective myself, I just get Green Bay Packers PTSD.
Yeah, we don't need that. Yes.
And so that's where my head goes, and I'm like, I would rather see something that doesn't channel the Green Bay Packers at all.
I also think it's funny that whatever, it's a Jersey website brand that reported that.
Yeah.
Now under every like Russo tweet, people are commenting like, I have to check with whatever is it, aesthetics for. I just laughed. Yeah, it's people are funny in the replies. For sure.
It's interesting too, because I probably will do this in a future episode. I was looking back at the original names that made the cut for the actual like team name back when Minnesota got the expansion franchise and was weighing their options. And I don't know. None of them were particularly awe-inspiring. There were a few options, and I'm pulling them up right now, that were just like absolute no's. So the finalists were Freeze, Northern Lights, Blue, White Bears, Voyagers, and Wild. And just seeing that list, I'm like,
imagine the Minnesota Northern Lights. No.
The one that honestly would probably have done it for me, but it was already a brand in Minnesota, the Moose. Like there was some level of minor hockey that had the Moose as their mascot, and it had a hockey helmet on, just a huge burly moose.
That's Winnipeg's minor league team. Is the Moose. Yeah,
I think that was exactly how that played out too. Is it was a Minnesota team, and I think they moved to Winnipeg. So I don't know. Like, I feel like you could find something that was Minnesota unique that didn't make you kind of go, but I don't know. I don't think this team will do anything along those lines for a while yet. Now, I think the big story that came out of all this was that with next season being the 25th anniversary, the 2025-2026 season being the 25th anniversary, there are a bunch of stuff in the works, as Russo said. There's a bunch of different things that are in the works that require prior approval. And so don't be surprised to see, I mean, there'll be a commemorative patch, I'm sure.
Yeah. But, I mean, the Wild, the game day staff and marketing, they always do great job with in-game stuff and promotion. So yeah, I'm sure it'll be great.
Maybe they'll bring the Reds back.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
We'll see. So today's listener question: what do you think about the uniforms? What are your favorite Minnesota Wild uniforms from their history? Is it the early 2000s? Is it the 2010s? Is it the jerseys now? Is it the 78s? Comment on today's listener question. Which are your favorite Minnesota Wild jerseys? And the winner will lead off tomorrow's show. We're going to switch gears to talking about just a mentality for this Minnesota Wild organization. Should the Wild be looking to try to grab a college coach potentially to lead things at the Iowa level as players get themselves set to move on to the next level? We'll talk about that as we continue today's episode of Locked on Wild after this. Today's episode of Locked on Wild is brought to you by Policy Genius. Folks, the world of life insurance is a daunting one, even for those that know what they're looking for. You want to make sure that you pick a life insurance plan that protects your family when unexpected tragedies strike. Policy Genius is the country's leading online insurance marketplace. It makes choosing the right policy for your family easy and quick. Plus, with Policy Genius, You can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million worth of coverage. Some options are 100% online and let you avoid unnecessary medical exams. Policy Genius helps you easily compare your options from America's top insurers in just a few clicks. So get peace of mind by finding the right life insurance with Policy Genius. Head to policygenius.com or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com. Policygenius.com. Welcome back to today's episode of Locked On Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. Reminder to join us for tonight's live show at 8 p.m. We will be talking top six. Denny has a lot of good stuff ready to roll. If you saw our debut last Sunday, you know you are in for a treat. So 8 p.m. tonight, head to YouTube and you'll find the show. We'll take your listener-submitted questions as well, and we're going to have a good time. So make sure to join in on the fun tonight. Only way you can is by subscribing on YouTube, so make sure to do that if you have not already. Seth Topol and Alex Micheletti hanging out here on a Monday edition of the show, and Alex wanted to talk about it's a mentality thing for me, and the reason I even bring this up is because I saw the news that Grant Potulny is leaving Northern Michigan and is headed for an NHL level job, a pro job, whether that be in the AHL or on an actual NHL staff, not sure. But that kind of got me thinking, like, would that be a route that the Iowa Wild should be looking to go, is to get somebody who has succeeded at the college level, and it makes sense for them as kind of a logical step up in their progression. And, you know, another one that kind of comes to my mind, obviously the Denver head coach was a hot commodity in the coaching search this cycle. Didn't end up taking anything. He's staying at Denver, but, you know, you may not be able to get somebody of that caliber, but a college coach looking to make his way to the NHL, it makes sense to me, but is it something that would even be worth considering?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, this generation of players is so much different, and you know, looking to try to find a younger coach to look, or try to fit in with try to relate to the younger player, I think makes a lot of sense. Iowa tried to do that with Cody Franzen, but I don't think he had a lot of coaching experience, so that, it was kind of a disaster with the young defenseman there. So, look to find the coach that does have some experience, but it still is younger. I think, that would be perfect, especially for a team that, has struggled now for a couple of years.
Yeah.
You really want to have that be turned around, because the Wild are going to have some spots open and cash open once the buyouts are done. So, yeah, they're going to have a lot of guys that are going to have opportunities to make the team at a young age, and you want them to be ready to play at the NHL level, because there's a ton of guys in Iowa that are, you would kind of call them like if there was a league in between the NHL and the AHL, like the tweeners, you see it in baseball all the time, like quadruple A players, guys that aren't major league ready, but are better than triple A. That's kind of like, it seems like a lot of those for the Wild, but
yeah,
they just need confidence too.
And another reason I bring this up too is the best example that we have currently at the NHL level is John Cooper. Yeah. Like, he worked his way all the way through the ranks. He was a high school coach, then worked his way up to the AHL. He had some junior team experience in there as well. He won at every level, though, and I know the Tampa Bay Lightning are kind of on the back end of their cup contention window. But geez, they got to 3 straight Stanley Cup Finals. They won 2 of them. and they got to the Eastern Conference Finals all in a 5-year span. And so, that's the kind of stuff that having a coach that gets it.
Look at what Buffalo just did. They just had an AHL head coaching job open, and they gave it to a junior hockey coach in the USHL from the Green Bay Gamblers, Michael Leone. And he's a young coach, young rising in the coaching world, and so they were looking for a guy to help get these young guys to the next step. And, was a younger coach and can relate to those players, and had a lot of success in the USHL, which is a really difficult junior league and has a lot of NHL prospects. So it was a smart move by the Sabres organization. So that's another example to look at.
Yeah, it's just I don't know. I'm viewing all of this as like setting the organization up, is like getting everything shored up and ironed up in Iowa, and building from there up, because the Iowa players are going to be the ones down the road.
Look at the Florida Panthers organization. Their ECHL affiliated team just won the Kelly Cup 3 times in a row. So, I mean, you want your entire organization to be successful, because that just, it has a culture of winning, and you want these guys to feel good, because at the AHL level, it can be miserable because you're taking bus trips and you're not on the private jet and getting 5-star meals. It's a different world for those minor league guys. And if they're losing a lot, it's tough, mentally. And it's like you're playing three games in 3 nights, and the AHL schedules just can be brutal. And you want people in there that have a culture of winning, and can get these guys to turn around where they've been. And especially if Wallstedt is stuck there, depending on if they decide to keep Gus or not, you want Wallstedt to have success down there. And part of it is his play, but the guys in front of him have to be a lot better too.
Why? I was just trying to look up the Iowa Wild's record, and unless I am just like, oh, that's why. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I was like, I'm just not seeing them. There they are. 27, 37, and 4. They had 62 points on the season, which was tied with the San Jose Barracuda for second worst. And the Chicago Wolves had 60 points for least in the Western Conference. In the East, Bridgeport had 59 points, so they were the worst team in the AHL. But the Wild of Iowa 3 points off of that, and so it just, in my head, it just makes sense to kind of get everything shored up at the Iowa level and build from there. And so that's the hope with Matt Hendricks, is that he will come in and he will do that. So he's going to get from me the benefit of the doubt for this upcoming season to see what he does. And
they have to find a great defensive coach, because it didn't work with Cody Franzen. Franzen had, he had a decent NHL career, but I don't think, he didn't, just for whatever reason, it did not work with for those young defensemen. And the thing that scares me too, as we've talked about on previous episodes, is the Wild, the top organization, is thinking about hiring Jack Capiano, who was in Ottawa, and Ottawa's defenseman. It was a train wreck. It was a train wreck. I don't know. And now they're thinking about trading, some defensemen there, just because it did not go well. And obviously they said enough with Jack, trying to teach these guys. And, Chychrun might be on the move again. So that's either a bad sign for him or just, the coaching that he continues to get from Arizona to Ottawa, and now another team after that, probably.
Yeah, it's just, again, and I've had some people point out on Twitter, just dial it back. But like,
and it's a huge deal because if you think, right now where the Wild are projected to draft, this draft is so defenseman heavy too that they might take another defenseman, and this is be critical for hiring quality coaches that are going to be coaching the defensemen, because it's going to be critical. You need someone out of this group to develop and be at the NHL level fully. It looks like Damon Hunt just for whatever reason, I don't know if he's ever gonna get to that chance.
Yeah, it's going to be like, it's just this team is at an interesting point because we see how things are kind of unfolding. It's like a car that is, driving down the road. You see that there is a detour sign, and you're like, hey, are you going to take the detour? And the driver's like, no, I think we'll just go through. And so there's still time to take the detour, but as it stands right now, it looks like you're just going to go careening straight into it. So we'll see, I guess. But speaking of careening right into the detour, the Edmonton Oilers staved off a 4-game sweep at the hands of the Florida Panthers. Not just with a gritty, close 1-goal win, they beat the snot out of the Florida Panthers. And so we'll talk about if that means anything going forward, or if it was just we've got nothing to lose, let's not get swept. We'll talk about that as we finish today's episode of Locked On Wild after this. Today's episode of Locked On Wild is brought to you by FanDuel. Folks, summertime means baseball, the NBA Finals, the Stanley Cup Final, and more. And you can bet on all of it on FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200. You can bet on everything from the Finals MVP to who's going to hit one out of the park. If you're in a state in which sports betting is legal, my advice would be, if you want an easy way to cash in that $5 bet, just pick whoever the Chicago White Sox are playing or the Colorado Rockies. It's pretty much a guaranteed win. And then you've got yourself $200 in bonus bets for the remainder of the NBA Finals, the remainder of the Stanley Cup Final. It could be one more game for each. It could be the full 7. You never know, and that's why it would be great to have $200 in bonus bets to cover you the rest of the way. So check out the Chicago White Sox, Colorado Rockies, bet on whoever they're playing, and you'll be in good shape. Either way, visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to add a big win to your summer bucket list. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. One final segment of today's episode of Locked On Wild. And once again, we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. We also invite you to tonight's live show, Locked On Wild Live. Denny will be laying things down on the top 6 in tonight's show. So grab some popcorn, bring your questions. We will get to all of it on tonight's show. 8 o'clock on YouTube. Don't be late. Alex, let's talk about the Stanley Cup Final. Speaking of don't be late, the Edmonton Oilers were behind 3-0, and they come away with a win to keep the series going. 8-1. Just dismantled. Sergei Bobrovsky gave up 5 goals before he was pulled. Connor McDavid had a 4-point night. You get a bunch of goals from the supporting cast went nuts.
Dylan Holloway, Adam Henrique. I mean, they were getting guys from their 3rd and 4th lines were scoring. It was an all team. Darnell Nurse scored. When he scored, I was like, this one's over for Florida.
Yeah, he had a strange game because he left the game after or he was called for a penalty that was initially a 5-minute major. It was reduced to a 2-minute, but he scored. He had 6 shots on goal. He was a +3 in 20 minutes of time on ice. But Leon Draisaitl 2 assists. Connor McDavid had a goal and 3 assists, and McDavid now is amongst the leaders in NHL history for points in an entire postseason with 34, but 31 of those are assists.
No, he has 38 now. Yeah, it's even more. Isn't that crazy? Yeah. Just
unbelievable.
Nuts.
Yeah. It just continues to show that he is one of the best players. Yeah, he does have 38, 6 goals, 32 assists. But you look at the reason as to why Florida was able to win the first 3 games of the series. In game 1, no points, and he had 6 shots. In game 2, he did have an assist, but just 3 shots on goal. In game 4, he had 2 assists, and yes, it was 4-3, but we got to keep in mind too that it was 4-1 until the Oilers started to try to frantically make their comeback. So for the most part, that game was out of reach until the last little bit, and then finally he gets on the scoreboard with a goal in game 4 to keep the series going. If you're Florida, are you worried at all about a hangover from losing a game in this fashion, or are you just, we're back at home, let's just finish the thing at home and not really think much about it?
Yeah, of course you would rather get it done in 4, but they're back home. They can dictate matchups now, and they just they need an all-world performance from Bob again. To what he was doing before, I mean, every game, like even from the beginning, from back in game 1, I mean, he was stopping breakaways. The Oilers have had their chances. They just struggled to finish in the first couple games, and now we'll see if they can do it on the road. It's gonna be very difficult, but you can never count out McDavid and Draisaitl. But if the Oil win tonight, then there's panic for Florida.
Yeah. Then we could have a little bit of nervous hands at the hands of the Panthers. Sergei Bobrovsky gave up in 24 minutes more goals than he had in the entire series combined, with 5. And I think this was just kind of the prevailing theory on Sergei Bobrovsky, that he had been fantastic through the entirety of the postseason so far. Not invincible though, and it's just a credit to Edmonton continuing to try to pepper the net and continuing to try to capitalize on those chances, and they finally did. So if I'm the Florida, I use it as an opportunity for a little bit of a wake up call. Like, hey, if we aren't on our game, Edmonton can do this to people.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm not super concerned, considering how the first 3 games went, that this could go to 6 or 7. Like, just take care of business at home and you'll be fine.
Yeah, this seems like a Matthew Tkachuk kind of night. He's been very quiet at points in the playoffs, but I think he likes being under the radar a little bit too. And it just seems like this is like a career defining night, and it just seems like he is wanting his name on the cup so bad, not only just for himself, but you look at for his entire family, is for his brother, for his dad. His dad will be there again tonight, and just putting the Tkachuk name on the cup would be huge for that family, and that trade's worked out as we've talked about.
Yes, it has. Tkachuk has not scored a goal in the postseason since May 22nd. That was game 1 against the New York Rangers. So if he were to score in game 5, that would certainly go a long way. it's not like he hasn't been doing like nothing either. It's just, he's been, I think, focused more on the set the tone approach as opposed to the let's hit the back of the net. So we do at least get one more game in this series. I find it ironic that in the NBA Finals and the Stanley Cup Final, the team that had the 3-0 lead gets just blown out in Game 4, both series.
Yeah, it just I made the joke that both leagues wanted a little bit more TV advertising revenue, but especially with the NBA having Scott Foster, the extender, ref that one for the Mavericks Celtics. But we'll see. Both teams are at home in the next game, and so getting to celebrate in front of your fans is a lot better. But we'll see.
Oh, yeah.
Like I said, I'm never going to count out Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. This is the closest they've ever been, and we're almost 10 years in with those two both. So at some point, you hope they can get a Stanley Cup. It was like Ovechkin waiting so long. So we'll see. I really hope Edmonton can. If they don't get it this year, hopefully, relatively soon, because you're gonna when you're looking back at careers, it's like, is Mike Trout and Connor McDavid, like two of the generational athletes, are they never gonna get a ring or a cup? Oh man, it's crazy.
Be unfortunate,
yeah,
but we don't have to tell them what that feels like.
Yeah, exactly.
That'll do it for today's episode of Locked On Wild. Tomorrow we are going to take a look. We're going to dive back into the report cards, and I think we will go to Matt Zuccarello for tomorrow's report card. So be on the lookout on social media for the spots to vote for what grade you think Zucky gets for his 2023-2024 season. I'll give you a hint. He was pretty brutally honest about his performance in the exit interviews, so we'll probably have a common theme there. But beyond that, make sure to hit the subscribe button on YouTube so you don't miss out on any new episodes. Make sure to join us for tonight's live show at 8, and make sure to leave us a review on your favorite audio platforms. If you are so inclined, it helps get our reach out there better to more Wild fans. We've got you covered every Monday through Friday with a new episode as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.